Have you ever stood before the ruins of a collapsed empire? An empire that you built with your own blood, tears, and decades of wild ambition, only to realize you are standing there, completely alone, for 8 long years. A suffocating heavy silence has hung over the name Brad Pitt. The world watched the brutal legal warfare, the endless tabloid headlines, and the spectacular downfall of Brangelina, the most powerful dynasty modern Hollywood had ever seen. People picked sides. People judged. But through it all, the man at the center of the storm kept his mouth shut. He wore his cool, detached smile, nodded at the paparazzi bulbs, and retreated into the shadows. But today, the silence is officially broken. At 62 years old, Brad Pitt has finally stepped into the light to address the raw, unfiltered truth about Angelina Jolie, the bitter legal battles, and a reality far more terrifying than losing a $100 million estate. Do you know what true defeat feels like for a powerful man? It isn't losing your money. It isn't watching your reputation turn to ash. It is the agonizing, slow-motion realization that your own flesh and blood are deliberately erasing your identity from their lives. One by one, his children are dropping the name Pitt from their signatures. Today, we will strip away the polished public relations statements to uncover the deep psychological trauma of a father facing his ultimate failure. This is Brad Pitt's final late-night confession about a broken home that no amount of wealth, power, or Hollywood magic can ever piece back together. To understand the sheer magnitude of this tragedy, we must travel back to the summer of 2003, to the exact moment the match was struck that would eventually incinerate Brad Pitt's peaceful life. Picture the scene, the movie set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Brad Pitt was Hollywood's golden boy, locked in a picture-perfect, stable marriage with Jennifer Aniston. He had safety. He had predictability. But then, he locked eyes with Angelina Jolie. She wasn't just another beautiful co-star. Angelina was a tropical hurricane, dangerous, wild, carrying deep psychological scars, and an untamable magnetic energy. Let's look straight at the raw human behavior here. When a man gets too comfortable in absolute peace, his darkest repressed instincts begin to crave danger. Brad didn't just see a woman. He saw a mirror reflection of his own hidden rebellion. Their chemistry on that set was so volatile, so thick, that it completely consumed them. Every glance, every shared interview, became fuel for a global media wildfire. By 2005, the illusion of his perfect marriage to Jennifer was shattered. The world created its own narrative of villainy and betrayal. And when the paparazzi captured that infamous photograph of Brad sitting on a beach in Kenya alongside Angelina and her young son, Maddox, the trap was sprung. The destiny of William Bradley Pitt was permanently altered. He had abandoned his safe harbor to plunge headfirst into a beautiful but deadly storm. For the next decade, the world looked at Brangelina with absolute awe. Together, Brad and Angelina constructed a modern fairy tale that captivated the entire globe. They weren't just movie stars anymore. They were global royalty. They began expanding their family like architects, building a grand monument. They adopted Maddox from Cambodia, Zahara from Ethiopia, and Paxtheen from Vietnam. Then came their 3 biological children, Shiloh, followed by the twins, Vivian and Knox. 6 children. A beautiful, multicultural tapestry raised under the relentless, suffocating glare of global paparazzi. But what happens when you try to raise a family inside a glass house? While a storm is raging within your own soul, behind the glamorous red carpet appearances and the humanitarian missions, deep, invisible cracks were spreading. The arrogance of 2 massive, unyielding egos, combined with the crushing pressure of non-stop public scrutiny, began to take a heavy toll. And then, came Brad's silent demon, alcohol. He began turning to the bottle, using it as a shield to dull the sharp edges of a suffocating reality, the wild passion that had initially brought them together. Slowly converted into a toxic daily battleground, Brad believed he could control the chaos. He believed his status made him invincible. He failed to realize that every time he reached for a drink, he was loosening the bricks of the very foundation keeping his children safe. And then came September 2016, the tipping point, the moment of total catastrophic collapse. Imagine the tension. Inside a private jet flying from the south of France to Los Angeles, high up in the air, trapped inside a metal tube. Years of unspoken resentment, anger, and alcohol abuse finally exploded. Reports leaked of a violent verbal and physical altercation between Brad and Angelina. But the real heartbreaking trauma occurred when the children stepped in. Maddox and Paxthene, young boys forced to act like men, stood up to shield their mother from their own father. That single infamous flight triggered an immediate earth-shattering divorce filing by Angelina Jolie. It launched an 8-year legal nightmare, a brutal war over custody, child support, and the ownership of their French estate, Chateau Miraval. Angelina declared a total boycott. She vowed that neither she nor the children would ever set foot in Miraval again, leaving the historic vineyard a cold, empty monument to a dead romance. Brad Pitt was suddenly forced to face the FBI, child services, and the harsh, blinding light of public shame. He entered strict, grueling rehab. He spent months locking himself away, trying to sculpt his pain into clay. He won the legal battles. He achieved sobriety. But the verdict that mattered most was already being handed down. By his own children, they say, time heals all wounds. But in the psychology of family trauma, time can also turn distance into a permanent, unbridgeable canyon. 8 years have passed since that dark day on the private jet. Today, Maddox is living his own life in South Korea. Paxthene actively avoids the public eye, carrying a quiet, fierce resentment. But the sharpest, most agonizing dagger to Brad Pitt's heart came from his daughters, Shiloh, his firstborn biological child, the girl who carried his striking features, legally filed to drop Pitt from her name the moment she turned 18. Soon after, young Vivian, while working alongside her mother on a Broadway production, removed her father's name from the playbill. Can you feel the sheer weight of that silence? To grow older, to look at your colossal fortune, your Oscar trophies, your global legacy, and realize that the children you once held in your arms view your very name as a badge of shame. After 8 years of maintaining a tight-lipped silence, Brad Pitt has finally spoken out. He admits the legal wars are winding down, the paperwork is closing, but the alienation, the profound, freezing cold distance between him and his kids, remains the one brutal reality he cannot rewrite. He has come to understand a terrifying psychological truth. You can buy the best lawyers in the world. You can win the rights to a $100 million vineyard, but you can never, ever buy back the respect of a child who watched you fall. Look at the Brad Pitt of today, a man in his 60s, moving slower, speaking softer, seeking comfort in the quiet isolation of his art studio. He has survived the public trials. He has conquered his addictions. And he has finally learned to surrender to the reality of his consequences. He is a living textbook lesson in the law of cause and effect. Every time he looks at an old photograph or sees his children's faces flashing across the news under a modified, shortened name, a silent wave of regret must wash over his soul. He chose the storm, and the storm did exactly what storms do. It destroyed everything in its path. The tragic story of the Brangelina collapse, is a mirror reflecting for all of us the absolute fragility of a home. Do not mistake power for protection. Do not mistake wealth for stability. What about you? What are your thoughts on Brad Pitt breaking his 8 years of silence? Do you believe that a bond so deeply fractured can ever find a way toward forgiveness and healing? Or is the distance between a father and his children the ultimate price he must pay forever? Share your thoughts and perspectives in the comments below. Let's start a conversation. If this deep dive touched your heart and gave you a moment to reflect, please hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel today so you never miss our next cinematic journey into the hidden lives of history's greatest legends.